Testing. Hello, I am not Matt the Lesser. I am EJ, the normal sized. I'm just here because I'm going to be putting these videos of Matt's streams on the Terra Mystery Cats YouTube, and I just wanted to give a little preamble as to why I think you should go ahead and watch a long series of these things, but I really think they're worth your time. So the backstory is that during the most recent season of the Terra Mystica Tuesday League, we ran a turn-based league for the first time, and Matt on his twitch.tv/MattTheLesser, was running these turn-based streams where he was at sort of fairly random intervals going through his games and looking at how they were going and making moves. 4 games in total, running simultaneously. And it doesn't sound like an interesting thing to stream, right? A turn-based game. By its nature, there's not much happening, but it's actually a really interesting format. I think you get to really luxuriate in each game, and most importantly, you get to see how Matt is thinking about them and his thought process and decision process. He talks about it so well. He's really good at explaining what he's doing and what he's thinking about. And for that reason, I think if you play async Terra Mystica, if you play on Snailman, if you play TM Tour, or if you play on Board Game Arena, even if you're just playing live games, I think you can really learn a lot from this collection of Matt's streams. So I'm going to break them up. There are 6 of the streams in total. I'm going to put 2 in each YouTube video, I think. So following this, there'll be 2 of the streams, and then I'll put them in extra videos. And then at the end, which was really great, he got his other players in the division, and they all came on the stream together and talked together in a sort of debrief. So again, really worth watching. Yes, so please enjoy this series of videos. I'll be back at the end of this one with a bit of interesting Terra Mystica trivia. Cheers, enjoy.
All right. Hello, everyone. We are going to be doing some streams over the next few weeks talking about the turn-based Division 1 games. I'm going to be providing my perspective on the games as they evolve over the next few weeks. Super Charney is also going to jump into them on his Tuesday afternoon streams, so check for his perspectives there as well. And then hopefully some of my league mates will jump on at the end of the month, and we'll talk about the games in review once they've completed. So for today, I think I'm just going to run through sort of all the games have started, run through the different positions. Most of them are still in the auction, and we'll see how this evolves from there. Should be pretty quick. So let's start with this one. So our league decided that it would be fun to try to do a pretty big variety of matchups. So everyone got to have their own game, got to pick their settings, but we kind of maneuvered behind the scenes to make sure that the games were sufficiently different. So it's important to think about the settings in each one. So this one is lakes with landscapes, no expansion factions, no expansion scoring. Hey, Fickles. I'm definitely not playing a bunch of bums. Let's be very clear. So we've got we're still in the auction. We've got mermaids, darklings, chaos magicians, and dwarves. It's currently Simon's turn, so no immediate decision for me to make in this one. I'm sitting on the mermaids at 31, Melson, darklings 25, chaos is the 40 faction hasn't been grabbed yet, and Rafa's sitting on dwarves at 38. So, as all of you know, having just coming off the F2O Lake season, Lakes is a pretty cutthroat map, and I do think Chaos and Dwarves are going to make life pretty nasty for each other here. Um, I think I did once on Dwarves, and more likely will stay on the Mermaids Darklings side of things. It's a round 1 Spade and round 2 Dwelling game, so pretty nice start for Mermaids. They're going to get the double Spade. As far as the bonus tiles down here go, right? I'm expecting dwarves to take the spade. Yeah, exactly, Deranged. The track is good, but the issue is the map is nasty, and particularly with chaos, they can disrupt. Probably will disrupt at least one of their good starting spots, right? So in dwarves, I'd love to be able to start, c4 h5, but then if chaos starts either c3 or g2, it kind of blows up those. For the most part, as dwarves, you can start c4 and try to jump over to c2, and you can kind of get through here this way, which works okay, but it does not really work as well as a town spot. So I do think that the relative values that we've got right here are right. I think chaos is worse than dwarves, than mermaids, than darklings, but we'll see where the numbers land out. Dwarves will start with the spade in the spade round, which is nice. I presume chaos will take the big building tile and go just open the sanctuary, unless they start on a hex somewhere where they really need a spade, in which case I guess it could go one of the power tiles. Darklings will probably take something that gives them extra workers, and then I assume temp ship is actually gonna fall to the mermaids, which is one of the reasons I think that it's really nice for them. But even if the darklings end up taking it, worker power double spade here is totally fine for mermaids. So the late big building scoring rounds depress the scoring a little bit, but are kind of nice for mermaids too. So anyways, that's this game. We'll talk about it as it evolved and once I actually have a faction. But it should be a cutthroat one, as many Lakes games are. So let's move on. All right. Yeah, landscapes were there on that one. So here's the one game with Fire and Ice faction. So there's actually two games, but unfortunately one of them is the game that I'm not in, which is really sad because I'm a big Fire and Ice faction fan, as many of you know. But so this is my home game, Fire and Ice map, Fire and Ice factions, but no expansion scoring. So I've actually played very little of the Fire and Ice factions without the expansion scoring. So it'll be really interesting to see how this goes. I've already bid down Barnwell, and I particularly have been bidding down Ice Maidens quite a bit. I think they're really quite nice here, for reasons I'll get into in a second. We have a little bit of bidding on Riverwalkers, Darklings, and then Halflings, who I do think are going to have a bit of a hard time this game. So part of the reason there is my anticipation. So it's a little bit weird. The implementation on BGA is a little different than Snellman when it comes to Ice Maidens, in that in Snellman, when you take the Ice Maidens, you immediately pick your starting favorite tile. On BGA, you put the Ice Maidens in, you pick their color immediately, but you don't pick the favorite tile, and I'm presuming whoever wins the auction gets to then pick the favorite tile, so it does give a little bit more flexibility. So I think, especially if I end up on Ice Maidens as I'm currently bid, I think taking Air 2 and then one of these power tiles can guarantee them double dig in round 1, which one is quite nasty to Halflings, who otherwise would probably get it and would like it a lot. But maybe more importantly, the Ice Maiden's landscape is really cool, and if you can get it out at the beginning, you want it first. So I don't know if you guys can read that with my cursor over it, but what it does is once you've built it, every time you build a temple, you get another spade. So Ice Maidens could very easily take double spade here and then be able to open temple, landscape, 2 dwellings, which in the dwelling round feels really nice. And then you can build another temple in round 2, get another spade in a spade scoring round, and I think that's a really nice, good starting setup for Ice Maidens. I also like that they don't have any color neighbors. Picked on green here. Green has a couple nice spots that they can carve out without too much disruption. So I'm kind of hoping I land on them. I like playing them a lot, and I think that this would be a fun game. I also think the late rounds are pretty good for them. They can build their third temple in round 5, stronghold in round 4, and get a lot of points on the passing things. And without the extra scoring, it's actually probably a good thing for Ice Maidens because they tend to not do quite as well on it as some other people. But this price is pretty high right now, over 20 points over the 40 faction. So I don't know if I would go a lot lower. So we'll see how this goes. As far as the other factions, I don't love Riverwalkers on this map. I think they have a few choke points in the middle here around E1 and E2, F3. So I anticipate they'll probably start E2, B5. The landscape helps them a little bit in that they'll be able to connect more likely. It's less likely they're going to get cut off. But they're probably not getting the priest tile. So I anticipate halflings are probably taking worker power. Darklings are probably then taking the priest. So I guess they could take big building and leave it to the Riverwalkers, which would be really nice. And if that happens, the Riverwalkers probably become a bit of a bargain at a price like this. But given it's a dwelling round, they, with the Riverwalkers, you can open, like on this map, if it was red and you started B5, E2, you could open temple, dwelling, or even 2 temples on most tracks and it would be fine. But given it's a dwelling event in round 1, you really want to get a couple dwellings out. So, which is going to mean needing to unlock another color. So that either means you got to get that priest tile or take probably temp ship and then try to get the priest power action. Temp ship press the priest power action to unlock something like yellow could be really interesting here. Potentially nasty for the halflings if they don't grab C5, but even just the ability to go like D4, G2, and then you have some more access. Like, it's a little dangerous jumping around 2 ship too much with the Riverwalkers because then you got to figure out how to fill it all in. But that could work okay. Darklings are in kind of a nice spot. They do benefit from extra shipping, Ghostly, yeah. So they can have 2 temporarily, but the thing is they'll never be able to get it at the end of the game, right? So it can sometimes be useful for getting around corners. Yeah, they can't upgrade it. So you can get around corners or you can get a little extra area, but you just have to make sure that you can figure out how to get the intermediate hexes. The landscape basically allows you to resolve 1 double ship conundrum by placing in the water and being able to go off of that instead. So it does give them a little bit here. I think I like priest here for Darkling Strange, and I was just about to move on to them, mainly because it denies the priest to Riverwalkers. Oh, and look at this. We actually got a bid right as we were playing. Simon just bid on the Riverwalkers. Anyways, I like the priest to deny it to Riverwalkers. And no one else really wants the worker action here. So for the Darklings, I think taking the priest and then just taking the worker action is good. I actually think sending a priest to water here for them is totally fine. I'm anticipating probably an E3, D5 start. And then D6 if the Ice Maidens don't start C4. If Ice Maidens do start C4, they probably grab D6 immediately. If D6 isn't open, then you might have to use both priest on something. So that's a little tricky for Darklings, but my main concern with Darklings here is just that the late game scoring. I'm not sure they're really going to be able to get enough points. Like, do you wait until round 4 to build your sanctuary? You probably don't want to do that. It's probably a little late. But then the track doesn't have that many points. So, but they're Darklings, and this map is okay for them. They do have a neighbor. In games with Riverwalkers, a lot gets determined on what color the Riverwalkers go after early for like their second color. So, but I don't think it's going to be blue or brown, so that's good for the Darklings. Yeah, and then halflings here, like halflings are in a tricky spot because they're basically praying that Ice Maidens don't play that double dig line, which isn't impossible. Ice Maidens could play the single dig line and take, Earth if they want to take like Earth 2 instead of Air 2, and it wouldn't be terrible. But otherwise, you're probably looking at trying to get some shipping and then get a lot of points off digging later. We might see the driller in this game, which would be really fun. The late game halflings with landscapes, we could see our good friend. So keep that in mind as this game goes along. But that's kind of where we're at here. Again, I'm really probably willing to slightly overbid for the Ice Maidens here just for fun purposes. But obviously, don't tell everyone. Don't tell these guys that. So we'll see if I get them. All right, now I can click on this handy button since they're games that I actually have my turn in. All right, so someone bid on this game. We're back to the lakes. I'll come back to this since we already talked about it. All right, so here's the one game that we're past the auction. So I'm on Swarmlings. This is base map, no landscapes, but with extra scoring of greatest distance. So that's probably I actually really like my position of Swarmlings here, other than that extra tile, which I'm probably not going to score any points on, unfortunately. But so we're going to try to make it up. But so the bids here, I don't think anyone's lost any leech points yet. So the bids here were 35 for Barnwall and Fakirs, 28 for Witches, I think. Yeah, because everyone's built a TP. 28 for Witches. Melson, Rafa got Alchemist for 40, I guess. Oh, he lost one. Yeah, 40. And then I got Swarmlings for 33. I did get the Priest bonus tile. I got to send that to Air, so I'm going to get a nice Spade. And then I also was able to get Double Dig. So round one's gone quite nicely for me. I'll obviously finish out by building a Stronghold and a TP and another Dwelling. With the round 6 town event, I do think I'm probably long-term going 3 towns here for Swarmlings, and I'm just going to try to play pass tiles really hard. This was a really interesting pass tile set because all 3 power tile bonus tiles were out, which was one of the reasons I was able to get Double Dig, just having the 9 power in Bowl 2 versus all my opponents did not enable me to do that. I debated my second starting spot here for quite a while, G6 versus either H4 or even H2. Decided to end up going with G6 to slow down the Alchemist a little bit, and also just because H4, like, there was danger of me not getting Double Dig if I didn't have the Leech. Guaranteed placement next to Alchemist. When do I plan to build my first temple? Probably round 2. Probably try to just build Water 1 or even Earth 1. I was actually doing the math in my head the other day when I was looking at this, and even if I build 2 dwellings, right? If I end up going for 3 towns, that's probably 11 structures. So that would be after 4, that would be another 7. That's 14 points. A Water 1 is also Water 1 is probably 15 points, and Air 1 is 14 points. So if Earth 1 is there, beginning of round 2, I will probably grab it. And as far as am I trying to connect here, probably not. If for some reason we get to like round 5 and H4, H5 are still sitting there, then maybe I'll go for it. But most likely, sadly, I'm probably scoring 0 on those big endgame scoring. So I really need to hammer the Colts, 3 towns, the track and the pass tiles. So we'll see, but should be pretty fun. Yeah, I mean, I think Swarmlings would have gone a lot lower in this game if it wasn't for this extra scoring. The fact that, going no network on a game with extra scoring is a little dangerous. So we'll see how much it comes back to bite me. But I did anticipate the C1 Alchemist. I think he's in a decent spot. I'm guessing here that both Rafa and Barnwell are going to open Double Temple, which is going to put a lot of priests in the game, which is not great for cult pressure. Although luckily both Fakirs and Alchemists are factions that want to use a lot of their early priests in other ways. So hopefully we see some shipping and some flying. The track overall is not super high scoring besides the last couple events. So that's what I anticipate. Fakirs have the nice setup of they're actually going to be able to get this middle stretch, F3, E6, D4 most likely, unless the witches become really nasty, and maybe even G2. I do have a bit of a trick up my sleeve for the Fakirs, potentially trying to cut off their eastern town a little bit. I don't know if I'm able to do it, but we're going to try. As far as what towns I want and when, I'm probably Sanctuary Town in round 3 for the two key town. And two key town is going to be really crucial for me this game. Also, if I want to build a bunch of dwellings in round 5, racking up workers from those worker events in round 3 and 4 is going to be really helpful. Yeah, I totally agree, Ghostly. Like, we will see if I can score enough points here to make up for the end game scoring, but we're gonna try. But yeah, I think that town then, and then probably wait on the second town until round 6. Probably need Fire 2 to do that, which is okay given the late fire rewards. Build that with that like temple in round 5, and maybe just hold off on a dwelling, or we'll have to figure out the exact ordering. But it should be a fun game. The sandwich doesn't hurt me too bad here. Like, witches aren't really going to get in my way, unless I just have to make sure that if I want like F2, for example, I just get that before he builds a stronghold, which won't be until round 3 at the earliest. And the Alchemist, I already kind of alleviated by double digging H7, the biggest issue that I potentially had with it, I think, unless he tries to come around through E4 or something. So I might have to grab H2 a little earlier than I'd otherwise want, but I'm not too worried about the neighbors. All right. I think that's this one. I guess I have to take an action. So let's take an action. I think it's time to finally upgrade. To think about what leech we're giving people. So I think Barnwell wants the workers action. He's got enough to take it. I don't see Mellison taking it. I'm guessing Mellison probably will take single spade. Rafa already took the priest action, which probably is just a setup for next round. Because the single ship doesn't do him a ton unless he thinks he can get a spade. So I think Mellison's going to single spade and use that bonus tile to build through the middle, probably. So I don't think who I'm giving leech to matters a ton here. Especially since building the TP right now doesn't give Rafa enough for a spade, which is probably the one thing I don't want to do. Although he probably won't do that because it would prevent his double temple, so maybe it doesn't really matter. I think that I want to build the stronghold. So I guess the question is like, which towns do I want where, right? If I want the Sanctuary town to be the round 3 town, that's going to be easier in the west, No, sorry, I'm in the east where my cursor is here. So I think that means I want to build the stronghold in the east. The only thing is that just means I have to get F1, but I need that anyways if I eventually want to get a third count down here. So I think that's the answer. So we're going to go ahead and upgrade over here. All right. I want to cover the last game before we take these moves out. All right, here's the fun one, guys. This is revised base, no landscapes. Oh, with landscapes, sorry. Revised base with landscapes and with extra scoring, but no fire and ice factions. So the extra scoring in this one is clusters, which is a funky one. And then take all those crazy settings, and on top of that, add 4 factions in a line on the color wheel: yellow, red, gray, green. Yeah, so this is insane. And yes, I did set this color wheel. So with the Nomads, Witches, Engineers as the first 3, like the natural thing to do would be to throw like either black or brown, but I just didn't want to do that, so I didn't. So I threw Giants, and there's a little bit of chatter in the our league's little private Discord that everyone is just like, "What the hell is going on in this game?" So this one's going to be a bit of a shit show, and we're going to see how it evolves. Nomads have been bid down the most, quite a bit, and I think that's right. They're pretty nice on this map with this 3 yellows, one jump away, which I'm assuming was built to give a little boost to Fakirs, but Nomads can take advantage of it just as well. And there is temp ship in the game. There's no spade actually, which is part of the reason I ended up throwing Giants. I mean, I could have thrown Darklings instead, but like enough Darklings in the world. So I do think, but there's no big building tile, which is a little bad for Giants. And then so we've got Witches as the other like end faction with the next bid down, which I also think makes sense. And then both double sandwiched Engineers and Giants in the middle are what's left. The valuation here is really hard. I think like the ordering here is right, but in terms of how much something is bad. Temple Giants game. So that was part of what I was thinking here. Unfortunately, the more that I've looked at it, if you open with a stronghold with the Giants, I think you have a chance for a round 2 town in the town round, which would be really nice. Otherwise, I think Temple Giants is doable. So I think a couple opening lines for Giants here are you take temp ship, right? So red has this nice stretch in the northeast here, D6, C5, A12. So you could do that. You could take temp ship and open temple 2 dwellings without having to spend any power at all. It'd be really cool if you could get, with that temp ship, get the double dig. Unfortunately, I don't see any way the Engineers don't get the double dig here. Now, I don't know if they're going to have somewhere to put the digs, but I still think they're going to end up taking it. So I don't know. I mean, Temple Giants would be super fun. I think I've been thinking about Temple Giants recently too, and I think that I think the best scenario for them is Temple round 1 and the Fire event big building round 2, because then with that Temple you take Fire 1, and it all kind of goes together really nicely. Unfortunately, that event is not until round 4 you're in this game, and you're obviously not going to wait that long to build the Giant Stronghold. So I think if you open with the Stronghold here, you could still take temp ship, or more likely you maybe just take worker power. I kind of sneakily like A9 as a starting spot for Giants, and trying to go west, directly west, and that could be where you get your round 2 town, because I don't think either of these A7 or A8 are going to be under a lot of pressure. You're obviously then hoping that you get either nomads on B4 and or witches on B5. I think witch's second starting spot is going to determine a lot this game, and it's really hard to figure out what they're going to do, because so E7 is the obvious one, but whether their second one is B5, which gives them this nice little green blue green stretch, or E9, which doesn't have as nice of a setup, but if you let engineers have F6, E9, D7, especially since they're now going to be the 40 faction, that also feels really good. So green gray is still nasty on revised base. No, they didn't fix that problem from original base. So all of that said, given these valuations, I kind of think witches might be the right deal right now. I don't even know which one I would choose between E9 and B5. One thing that's nice is engineers have to place their second dwelling after. So there's a big question for if you're engineers, do you risk the F6 start or not? With landscapes, they do have the out of eventually, and they wouldn't have to do it immediately, putting their landscape on G6 and bridging out this way if they were really worried about connection. But then witches are also still probably beating them to G3. So it's tough for engineers in the setup for sure. It's a little better if they can get temp ship, because you could potentially try to snag G3 out the gate. You're also probably, I don't think Giants would start G2, because I don't see how they're going to connect if they do, because I assume nomads will start on E8. I think E5 and E8 are guaranteed for nomads, and the third one is probably B4. Could be G4 if the engineers like start on H6 or something. So there's a lot of variety in this game. So we'll see what happens. I think with engineers too, another thing you could do is try to play this sort of center and west only, with some bridges like tall type engineers off of a round 4 stronghold. We played a game recently where Danny did something kind of like that was really cool. But he wasn't double sandwiched. So I don't know if that's going to work. Anyways, all that said, I think I do kind of like witches here. I think that this E7, D5, C3 is going to be pretty uncontested. Even if you get giants on D4, which is certainly possible, you can get this before they can get their stronghold and steal it. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. You might have to take a kind of ugly single dig as witches, is the one thing. But maybe it's worth it. I mean, the one thing here to think about is like after worker power and temp ship, the bonus tiles get kind of ugly. So as witches here, like, do you take ship scoring to guarantee yourself a spade action? It's a little ugly. So nomads, on the other hand, like, are probably in pretty clearly the best position, although they're also not getting a great starting tile. I think taking coins and opening with like a priest power action to just build temple 2 dwellings is probably pretty reasonable. The sneaky weird thing about nomads in this game is that they don't have a neighbor on E5 because E6 and F3 are not going to be occupied. And actually, none of these factions really want these, besides maybe the Giants. But otherwise, if they want a neighbor, they're actually going to have to come to E6, which they could, again, do with like a spade action, but it's a little ugly. Favors, great question, Deranged. I think Giants, if you open Temple Giants, I think it's Fire 1. I think that's like almost, I feel like that should almost be the default for Temple Giants. Not that I've played a ton of them, but that does feel right. Otherwise, I think you probably are waiting, building a temple in round 3 and maybe praying Earth 1 is there. And if it's not, you take Water 1. Engineers, I think Earth 2, Earth 1. I mean, I guess that's the thing with engineers, like, is I have been sort of assuming they're going to take the double spade, but 2 temples is also kind of nice. I just think they're going to be really worried about carving out space. If Giants take temp ship and engineers have worker power, they could potentially do the two temples and a dwelling opening, which is really nice. I'm not positive they're going to get enough leech to do that, because their second one maybe has one neighbor, but that's a bad thing. Or here they still only have one neighbor, so I don't think they're going to get enough leech to do that. So it's either two temples or more likely double dig, because I think their second dwelling probably won't have one. So actually does give a lot of optionality for giants, though. The more that I've talked through this, I feel like giants can kind of, like, maybe they can get temp ship and get the double spade depending on where engineers start. Maybe they start stronghold up top. The other thing is, if witches start on b5 and don't get double dig, giants could steal a10, which would be really nasty. Although maybe not actually that good. So anyways, I spent a lot of time in this game because it's complicated. I think I'm gonna bid giants down one. The landscape helps them a lot too, because it's basically 6 free points. So and I think they can do reasonably well in clusters by going after all these reds. Like, that's the one thing about nomads, is nomads really like 3 towns, and that's not good for clusters. Witches are decent on clusters once they build their stronghold. And engineers, I think, are just going to have a hard time getting enough territory. So 1 on giants it is. Hey, Sitcob. Before I get off, where do I see giants starting? So I was talking a lot about A9, which I think is really interesting. I think gives them some outs in a lot of different ways, and you kind of have to hope that witches and nomads will come and give you a neighbor. If neither of them do, it's bad. But I think there's decent chance that you do. As far as the other one goes, if you're going to start on temp ship, you really want to start on one of D6, C5. To be able to take advantage of that. If not, I mean, D4 is going to get a lot of leech, but it's not otherwise really a great spot, especially if you're trying to go the like A9 to A6 route. And if you start like D4, D6, for example, connecting becomes a bit tricky. So right now, if like it landed here and I ended up on giants, I'd probably be looking at like A9, C5. The other thing about D4 is that by not going there, you actually like deny, which is a lot of leech, which is kind of nice. I mean, you lose it yourself too, so what's better. But so that's where we're kind of at. All right, let's move along. Okay, we talked about all 4 games now, so just back to this one, which had a bid come in while we were talking about it. So really quickly, I think I do kind of like dwarves here, actually. The early brown rewards, and as I said, they can get kind of messed up by chaos magicians, but at least it's only one of their spots and not both. There's also a chance that if mermaids start on C6, then chaos goes over here, which is much better for them, but also helps dwarves a lot. So I'm kind of leaning toward, it's between dwarves and mermaids, I think. Let's do one bit on dwarves. Dwarves on lakes. God, makes me sound crazy. Although the landscape can help too. So that's what we're going to do. Spade in the spade round. All right, everyone. No, not dwarves on lakes. I know. Landscape helps a lot. So thanks, everyone. Check back. We'll do these every few days and check in how the games are going. Try to do them over the season, as I said. Hope you all enjoyed. And if you want to look at the games, all the links are on the TMT schedule page. See y'all. All right. Hello. Whoever my one viewer is at this point before everyone else joins, I hope you enjoyed my janky countdown timer, or for anyone who watches this later. We're trying here. Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to our second check-in on the TMTL. Hey, Zigub. The TMTL turn-based. Hey, George. D1. Last time we checked in, most of the games were still in auction. One had just started. Now all the games are underway. I have a faction in all games. They've been moving. We have everything as diverse as one game where I'm about to take my first actual move of the game, and one game that I think is in round 4. So speed has varied a little bit, but just going to do a check-in. We'll review a little bit of what has happened up to this point, and then talk about it's my turn in all 4 games. So we'll talk about the moves that I'm going to make and a little bit of my plans and thoughts going forward. So let's jump right in. We're going to start with this one, which I think is the first game we talked about last time around too, which is our Lakes game. So just a reminder, or for anyone who didn't see before, hey Civ, we spread out the setups quite a lot across the whole league. So a whole bunch of different combinations. We have 5 games on 5 different maps. So this one's on Lakes. No Fire and Ice factions. That's where we are. Auction. I've got the info right here. Mermaids in first seat at 26. Darklings, me, in second seat at 20. CMs in third position, yes, at 40, and Dwarves in fourth seat at 32. So I paid the most for the Darklings. As you can see, my score currently is exactly equal to where I started due to a little bit of leech and digging. And we're in the middle of the second round. Quick review of the first round was Mermaids opened with double dig after placing on H2. Unlike that F2O game, he did not entice me to come down and meet him. I started B4 G5 instead. Ghostly, I didn't get it until you pointed it out, but that's funny. I actually thought you were talking about the overlap of TMTL and MTL. This the other thing I've thought of. Is pretty good. Anyway, so I started B4 G5. Mermaids were E4 H2, CM, and Dwarves H5 C4. So nothing particularly crazy. Mermaids did not get temp ship though. So I think his thought was to start on H2 and try to maybe dig E1 with temp ship like we saw in that F2O game, anticipating that Chaos Magicians or Dwarves will probably come over to the D2, D3 area. But I, as Darklings, actually took temp ship as the third one, which is how I got to C5. So I opened with Temple for Earth 2. So we can look at the favors down here. The one that I took in round 2 when I was able to build my sanctuary. The scoring event in round 1, which is now covered up and you can't see it, was spades and coins for Earth. Logic in taking Earth 2. And for me and for everyone, I think, but also for Darklings, one of the reasons I was interested in Earth 2 this game is there's a second brown reward in round 3, which I'm now met, so I'm going to get a spade then. And then also more importantly, maybe with the big building events at the end of the game and landscapes in, I have a much higher incentive to build my stronghold toward the end of the game than I might normally as Darklings. And if you want to build a stronghold as Darklings, you need a lot of workers. So I've been pretty happy with it. Chaos opened Sanctuary and was able to ship and still get double dig with their second action of the Rafa's been able to get a couple digs out. Rafa went to F5 instead of taking double dig, which he had the option to do with his first action of round 2, which I thought was an interesting choice. I think he is just making sure that he gets E5, and that nothing weird would happen there with chaos. And otherwise, I'm set up pretty well to get a town in round 3 in the town round. Which town I take is a little up for debate. I mean, normally with an early town 2 key might be interesting, but it's not nearly as good for Darklings because you don't want to throw a bunch of other priest occults. So I may actually end up just be leaning like a coin town, uh, being a 4 structure town. I think my move right now, I'm probably just going to dig build A6, and then I have to decide whether or not to then pass or go ahead and build the TP on B5 now. I think it's going to depend a little bit on which pass tiles are available come my next action. Either the spade tile or the dwelling tile with the 2 extra coins on it. I think I'll probably just do that because that'll give me enough coins to build another dwelling on one of those yellows plus TP on B5 for the town. But if not, then maybe I'll go ahead and try to build the TP now, even though it would require burning a couple power um, to have a little bit more coin income for the following round. So that's kind of where I'm sitting. I also landed on the big building tile, which is really nice. Oh, I didn't even think about that, Civ. But yes, it is very easy every time I open a game to remember what's going on with the advantage of different setups. As far as the other factions here, assuming Rafa does successfully nab E5 before Chaos, Chaos has kind of been relegated to the west side of the map only, which means I probably won't have a lot of action with him. But he does have a lot of points. He started on 40, and getting, Sanctuary 2 dwellings by the end of round 2 is pretty strong. We'll see if next round he goes for like bridge and a temple, maybe for fire 2 to lock a town down. He probably is very interested in the 2 key town. So I think he's in a decent position. Rafa, I assume, will put the landscape on E5. It's a pretty natural spot for dwarves in this map. It connects him, which is pretty much now at this point like one of his only landscape on like D4 or something. But he'll then probably come over to the east a little bit, which is actually not bad for me because I'm going to want my second town somewhere in this G4 through F7 stretch. Simon went ahead and advanced his ship again this round, which means he will probably build on C6, which I'm going to let him do it. And also H6, which H6 would have been nice for me, but is not crucial either. So ultimately, he may try to come through H7 on the bottom too, which could be a little more disturbance for me. But overall, I think I like my position in this game pretty well, other than obviously the fact that I started with the least amount of points. But I think I'm going to have not too hard of a time building 3 towns, especially given I started with an econ favor. So if I build one in sort of the center south here around G5, and then probably trying to cut for Darklings. There is a ship scoring tile, so maybe that'll change if I land on it. But otherwise, 1 ship connection would be pretty cool here. So that's roughly where this game sits. We'll see about dwarves and mermaids getting a town in round 3. It's looking unlikely for both of them. Mermaids would probably have to get like double dig and the spade action in the middle section, or build like a super early stronghold, which they're not going to want to do. So, and dwarves, maybe if they triple dig G4, he does have a lot of power. So we'll see what Rafa does, but I think more likely he just builds another temple this round. So that's where this game is. I think it's probably the most straightforward. I'm going to go ahead and take my action. I'm just going to go ahead and dig build because I actually want one of these coin heavy pass tiles that are sitting available. So passing first would be great for me. Plus, who knows? Maybe I get a little more leech somewhere. If Rafa decides to like build a temple on C3 or something, and I could actually get the coins action again. Yeah, Rafa can build a couple more dwellings. Like I think he's the biggest threat. It's early. I mean, threat to me, that doesn't even necessarily assume that I'm in first place. I'm not sure I am, but I think he's in the next. He and I are probably in the 2 strongest positions. So, but yeah, I do assume he'll take the workers action and build some dwellings. It is a dwelling round, so he'll be in a pretty good spot. Yeah, it might just be 1 tunnel at Cobb, maybe 1, maybe 2. We'll see. Potential issues that I'm like foreseeing this game in advance are G6 maybe could be a bit of a hot spot. Like if Rafa got an idea of founding a town down in the south. He could potentially want that. If Chaos was putting more pressure on the middle, I'd be worried about D7, which I think is a really, really, it's not game breaking connection point for me, but it's really, really strong if I'm able to get it. And I won't be able to get it for a couple rounds. So I'm hoping that it sits there. I guess Rafa could also want that for like a E6 through B7 town. So those are things I'll probably have to prioritize. If I can grab Temp Ship again in like round 4 or something, that would probably be really helpful. But right now I'm just focusing on building out my town, and the rest of it I kind of got to play by ear. I'm already connected at least by getting C5, but need to get over here to the west a little bit. To the east. So anyways, that's this game. Let's go ahead and dig build. Nice little point boost. Oh, one thing I didn't mention in this game that was really nice is I got the coins action in round 2, which made that plus having Earth 2 enabled me to build, and therefore an extra dwelling enabled me to build both Sanctuary and Dwelling this round. The Earth 2 actually what ended up not being necessary because I ended up on the big building tile, but before that it would have allowed me to do it even without it. So that's nice. But now I am a little bit coin tight, as I mentioned earlier. All right, let's move on. All right, so this is the game that's the farthest along. Reminder on setup is this is regular base map, no Fire and Ice factions, but with Fire and Ice scoring. The scoring is greatest distance, and no landscapes. And I didn't actually write down the bids on this one because we were past it before, but if I remember correctly, Witches were the most expensive, followed by Swarmlings and Fakirs about the same, and Alchemists were the 40 faction. So, hey, Deranged. Welcome. So, this game has been going really nice until one thing that happened very recently, which I'll talk about in a little bit, which is this Witches dwelling on F2. So I know this game is moving really fast. It got fastest out. It was the first game to finish in the auction, and also it's been moving quickly. I think the reason is that it's the one game that Simon's not in, and he's our one European. So the time zones are a lot more lined up, so people are able to take a lot more actions here on this one. So this game, in round 1, I opened with a double dig on H7, built 2 dwellings, the stronghold on D2, and the TP on I10. Since then, in a couple rounds, I have expanded that into a sanctuary town. I built a temple in round 2 for Water 1, the sanctuary in round 3 for a copy of Earth 1, which was still there. The thinking behind that was, one, there's a dwelling round in round 5. And a town round in round 6. So I actually think that next round I do want to try to expand a little bit, build more dwellings. This is not going to be a 7 structure swarms game, hopefully at least. And it also denied Earth 1 to either the Witches or the Fakirs. Now both of them have decent footprints at this point, so they're probably happy with Water 1, but maybe that puts a little Water 1 pressure. I actually thought so round 4 here is a big building round, and round 3 was also a big building round. I was kind of expecting Rafa to build a sanctuary for Water 1 in round 3, or if not, at least early in round 4. He still hasn't done that. He actually went ahead and built Stronghold on E5 just with his last move instead. Have this really nice synergy, these towns that are going to kind of be mirrors of each other in the middle, which is not good for the rest of us. But I have managed to rack up a decent number of points. I got the 2 key town in round 3, got some workers off the fire reward in round 3, and I'm now going to get some decent workers off the air reward in round 4. So as I said, all of it was going pretty well until the witches' stronghold. Yeah, exactly, Deranged. So the witches built their stronghold in round three, and after I had already passed, not that I had any ability to deal with it anyways, but after I'd already passed, he flew over to F2. I'm assuming he has two objectives with this flight. Number one being increase his distance, assuming he thinks he can figure out how to connect later, and two, be a jerk to me as I was having a nice game and I was kind of, I wouldn't by any means say running away with it, but I was in a strong setup. Hey Jay, yeah, I made that joke earlier that the three letters are the same, which is great. Terra, MattTheLesser. Um, so the question now for me, obviously, is what to do about it. I really did want F2. It was one spade and then one ship just to get down to H2, and that H2 and then the I row through I4 stretch was my most natural spot for a third town to score on that town round in round six. So I have a couple. I've been thinking through this one, and I have a couple options. Option number one is stick with two towns. That feels like a bad option, but if people continue to mess with me, it might end up being my only option. I could potentially build out some more dwellings in the west. I won't be able to get another town because it's not a landscape game, but I can at least score some on the dwelling round, and then I can try to save this. Probably either way, we'll try to save this existing western town space for round six. There's a little bit of danger of Alchemist trying to mess with me, but it's not a good spot for him, and he's clearly trying to carve out three towns already. He's got this eastern one, this northern one, and I think he's going to try to do something in the center here because of where he put his stronghold. So if I'm in a good position, he could probably do it, but I might be able to try to hold that off. The biggest issue with that is I can't build two dwellings there if I upgrade a TP in the west right now. And obviously, right now, E2 is the only spot I actually have. Yeah. So the only way for me to not do that is if I can get to H2 this round. The only way to do that, I am lucky enough to be on the spade tile. So, but ideally, I would upgrade my digs, but I'm a little bit worker short. So the only way for me, I was doing the math earlier, and unless I did it wrong, I think the only way for me to get to H2 this round is to use the spade and do one full three worker hard dig on F1 right now, build there, and then I can advance my ship and get to H2. Now, the problem with this is Mellison he already blocked me once and he can easily block me again. He has shipping and plenty of power and workers, so H2 is very, very blockable for him. On the other hand, he doesn't really want H2 unless he wants to try to build out that whole section of a town down there, which maybe he does, but he is running into a situation where it's just a lot of spades. He doesn't have upgraded digging or anything, at least not. I mean, he certainly could soon, but probably not this round. But next round, maybe. My other option is I could advance my digging once or even twice and still be able to build F1 this round, but I won't be able to build H2. I'd have to wait until next round, which is not terrible because it's a dwelling round, but also presents the TP a problem. What do I think Mellison's next move is likely to be? I do think that is an extremely good question. I actually think his most immediate next move is probably to build a safe for Water 1. He's on the big building tile. It's a big building scoring round, and he doesn't have a scoring favor. And I think Water 1 is better for him than Earth 1, but it could be Earth 1. But I think it's a sanctuary for one of those two favors. Is most likely his next round. And then, I mean, he might go ahead and build a TP this round too. But the thing is, he has two moves potentially to block h2 for me. The other move that he could make if he was trying to be a little more aggressive is he could try to take f1 right now, which he could do with a spade. I mean, he's right after me, and I'm obviously not taking the double spade, so he could take the double spade and do something like build f1, change h2 to green, or g1 ultimately, which is going to be important for his connection. So I could certainly see moves like that. Before Rafa built this stronghold, there was part of me that was like, what if I just advance my digs and try to dig through h3 to go to e4? So rewind a little bit. E2 obviously starts as a brown hex, and the two TP events in this game were rounds 1 and 2, so which equate to the 2 spade cult rewards. I was able to get both of those cult rewards, and one by one changed E2 to blue. The reason that I did that was, one, I wanted to get through to F2, which is obviously now blocked, but also, importantly, it kind of ruined that spot as a town for fakirs. So yeah, it was a nice setup. Pretty much everything about this game was a nice setup for Swarmlings, except for the extra scoring, which I don't think I'm going to get any points on. So anyways, all that to say, E3 might sit now for a little bit, but I think Darklings will just take E4, and I can't get there this round. I can't advance my digs, triple dig, and build again. Zidkov asked about ships and digs on black. He's full shipping, but no advanced digging. So the full shipping is how he's gotten around all of this. But he does have two. He does have two priests. But if he advances his digging, he's only got 3 workers left. Now the workers action is still there, so there's some optionality. So I think the only person whose moves are kind of straightforward this round is Barnawal. He just built his. Oh, sorry. The extra scoring is greatest distance. Barnawal built his stronghold with his most recent action, which indicates that he wants to do some more flights, which is smart, and he's trying to save his towns for round 6, which also makes a lot of sense. I think there's a chance that if Mellison doesn't take double dig, then Barnawal could take double dig for C2, which is a nice town spot there with a bridge. But he might also just build a. So yeah, Fakir's stronghold is always fun. He might also just build a sanctuary for a scoring favor. He also doesn't have a scoring favor, so that's that. So anyways, all of that to say, I think F is pretty important next for me. It gives me the optionality on H2, assuming that it doesn't get stolen. And even if it doesn't, it's only 1 extra dig toward a town that I ultimately want and need 4 hexes for. Like, if the witches took F1 right now, it would be really, really bad, because then I basically have to secure both those other hexes faster than I want to, and there would be so much threat of them getting taken. So I'm leaning pretty heavily toward the spade and the hard dig. If witches don't take H2, I'll advance my ship and I'll build. And if not, then I can also just pass early, which isn't terrible for me, because there's this TP pass tile, which I also really want. Mellison, unfortunately, is on my favored big building tile. But I say unfortunately because I just don't think there's any way that I last longer than him in this game, or sorry, in this round. Yeah, so I did take the coins action last round. I could have taken double dig instead for F1, but I think the coins long term were important for me. Especially if I want to build a bunch of dwellings next round, need some coins, advancing digging, advancing shipping, like all that kind of stuff. So that's where all of that thinking came from, and we'll see. I'd love to send another priest to air this round. I don't know if that's gonna play out from a timing perspective, and that's kind of where we're at. So we'll see what happens. One thing to note too, a past decision. One past decision that I wanted to point out was in round 2. Because I built Stronghold TP and 2 dwellings in round 1, I did not produce Priest in round 2. The Priest that I sent to Air in round 1 was the pass tile, but I obviously wasn't on it again. This is why Swarmlings aren't boring. Yes, Swarmlings are not boring. Swarmlings are like heavy planning faction, which I love. If you want to see a really cool Swarmlings game, the one that I won in D1 of TM Tour was like the most planned out thing ever. It was awesome. I knew what I was doing in round 5 and like round 2. And the fact that it all worked was... anyways. There's still the 3-ship line. Ooh. I'm not going to lie. I had not seen that. Trying to keep the advice to a minimum just to for competitive parity, but that's all right. I don't think I'm going to do that. No, it's fine. It's fine, Zicub. I wasn't going to do it anyways. But it is interesting. I don't think E4 would sit anyways. I think by the time I could get there, the Alchemist would take it. So especially if C2 gets taken. So anywho, I wanted to go back to round 2. It was the Water Cult reward. And I also I knew I was going to build Water 2 that round. Water 1 that round. So I didn't need the 3-step. I just needed a Priest. But I decided to go ahead and you can kind of replay this if you want to go look back at the game. But I decided to go ahead and 5-power Priest and just send it straight to get the 3-step spot. And it was actually less about getting the 3rd step, and it was more about tempo because it ensured that I could do all the actions I needed to do and be ready to pass when Barnwall, who had the big building tile, and it actually worked out. And so I was able to pass onto the big building tile for round 3, in which I wanted to build my sanctuary. So take a look back at that if you're interested. But that was a decision that I pondered over for a couple days ago. So anyways, we're going to go ahead with this. It does mean that I lose 3 workers because I haven't advanced my digs, which is a little bit sad, but I think it's important in this context. And now Melson, I know you're not here because I asked you all not to join, but please don't take H2. Let me have it. And then all will be good in the Swarmling world, and the fish face god will be happy, right? All right. So there we go. Let's see what he does. The round 3 scoring was the other big building event, the fire one. So yeah, I got to put my sanctuary, score the 5 points, get the 2 key town, and get some workers off the fire cult. So it was pretty nice. Yeah, game on, indeed. Swarmlings can fight back a little bit too sometimes, even when they want to be. If you just left me alone, that's all I wanted this game was to be left alone. But all right, let's move on. All right, boys and girls, here's the fun one. I think I saved this one for last this time, and it happened to come up now. This is the least far along game. As you can see, I haven't even taken an action yet. There was a lot of thinking by all parties during this auction. And I finally mercifully brought it to an end by grabbing the engineers. So the final bids here were Nomads Melson for 15, Witches Simon for 20, Barnawall got Giants for 34, and I got Engineers for 40. I was hoping for a few things that already didn't happen, which I'll talk about in a second. I'll admit that I think my decision to jump was a tiny bit colored by the Premier League game from Tuesday, where I vastly overbid Witches, and I didn't want to do that this time, especially on revised base, which this game is also on. So it's possible I should have bid down. I'm thinking particularly Giants a little bit more here, but we'll see how it goes. I'm not terribly upset with the price. I'm terribly upset with Barnwell placing on G2. I didn't, if you remember from last time when I was talking about the um, different giant spots, I like talked about G2, but I didn't think it was a great starting spot. And I'm kind of very sad that he did. Yeah, I agree, Astari. I wasn't in love with Nomads here. I think I bid them like super early. Um, but the Giants are a problem, and I think witches are in a decent spot here too. So I've been doing some thinking. I want to talk about like the different options and sort of what's on the table here because I think there's a lot. And then we're going to try to make a decision amongst all of this, which is I don't even know what I'm going to be at here. So so here's the considerations as I look at it. And as you can see, both Nomads and Witches opened their first two actions just by upgrading. And so I have the full slate, right? I ended up on, and so here's the other thing. So when I took engineers at 40, I was thinking a couple things. Number one is I didn't think Giants would start on G2. And so I thought, okay, at least I have that as like a gateway to the West over here, which is now blocked, and will be much harder, if even possible, for me to get over there. So that's annoying. The reason I thought Giants would do that is that like his connection is already super, super threatened. And in a game with extra scoring, the extra scoring is clusters, which I like. It's amazing to me that he's choosing to ignore these upper reds. There's a way that he might not, which I'll talk about in a second. But the fact that he didn't start up there, like that was just the first surprise to me. The second surprise was him taking temp ship. Now, it's actually not like if he had started up here, I would have thought that he was going to take temp ship. But because he started down there, then I was like, oh, well, maybe at that point, to be honest, there was not a lot of different I could do. It influenced my D7 pick a little bit, but then I was like, I wasn't expecting him to take temp ship because with him starting in these two positions, in addition to messing with me, I have to think that he's hoping to connect through the middle and form that town. It is round 2 town scoring. So like that's got to be what Barnwell's going for. And if no one takes like E6 getting taken by Nomads is the main way that gets disrupted. But if he doesn't get that, I don't know how he's going to connect unless he somehow manages to get around and like snag E4 before the Nomads. Which maybe if the Nomads hold off their stronghold, but we also saw Astari just triple dug that in another game with 9 workers. So like people are aware it's a key hex. So for all those reasons, anyways, I wasn't expecting this, but now we're here. Once Barnwell placed on G2, the logic for D7 was one thinking, okay, if I get temp ship, I can double dig like D6 G3 or something like that, and that's not a bad start. Or if witches go E9, which I did kind of thought was at least, which I did think was a reasonable thing to happen, and it did. At least I have a single dig available for me on C5. If I'd started on F6, not only would I be cut off and basically forced to use the landscape to escape, which wouldn't have been terrible, but more importantly, like I wouldn't have even had a single dig option to start 2 temples and a dwelling on worker power. So part of me still wants to start 2 temples and a dwelling on worker power. It's a very strong start for engineers. It's a temple scoring round. So like I'm still pretty inclined to do that. But here's my concern. If I take single dig, 2 things probably happen that are bad from the rest of the board perspective. Number one is if I take single dig, double dig probably ends up falling to the witches. He's got the best leads position. He's basically 2 builds or upgrades away from getting it. And if he gets double dig and gets like D5 and F6, it just feels so strong. So that is like concerning. The other one is then me taking single dig means that nomads can't single spade e6, and that means giants probably get the middle town, which is also crazy strong for them. If now nomads are probably like more okay with this, because if I single dig, they can just take the priest and at least build d3 and b2. And then the witches maybe get a little bit screwed. But also the other thing that would be super, super bad is if my taking the single dig, if the nomads don't go ahead and immediately take the priest and it falls to the witches, then the witches get to advance their ship and take g3, which is a disaster. Like, this game has already started off badly. I cannot lose g3. Now, I might be in a position where I just need to risk it, but g3 is super important because it gives me one, like, step one toward connection. I'm still going to need d6 too, which is another thing. But also gives me access to like h6, i9. Like, if I can't get to those, I'm just going to be completely boxed in and have nowhere to go. If only the witches had started on b5, which I actually thought they might, but they didn't. So all of that is... you didn't realize I was playing for connection. It's less about connecting my two structures and more about getting... The g3 is honestly, it's more about getting access to i9 and h6 and other grays. But also with cluster scoring, like, I feel like I kind of have to try. If I get no bonus scoring, like no network or extra scoring points in this game, I think I'm pretty screwed. So that's that. So now here's the other thing is... So that's option number one, is kind of we talked about single dig. Double dig. I have enough power. I could take it. I could take it for c5 and put the other dig. I probably have to put it on d8, which is like ugly, right? Like, what? I don't even know what color it goes to. D8 to yellow. Okay. Eventually I could like double dig that and e11 and like make a town that way. That seems like the extra dig is effectively wasted, which feels like a big investment to like prevent someone else from getting it. The advantage is it leaves single dig for nomads. And if nomads take single dig, then they take it on e6. And also it means that the witches don't get a spade at all, which limits their expansion. But then witches get the priest and advance their ship and take g3. So I don't love that one either. There's an option if I take double dig, that then the nomads take the priest and the witches take single dig. But like, is that really any better? Like, at that point, I might as well just take single dig myself and hope that the nomads take the priest, right? Like, I don't think me taking single dig like versus double dig is going to change the nomads. I guess if I take single dig, they're more likely to take the priest, and then the witches get double dig, and that might actually end up being like the best answer here. And there's two more options. The next option is just upgrade. And play for a little more leech and flexibility. The disadvantage of doing that is I still run into a problem if the witches take a priest. Although if they think they have potential access to double dig, then maybe they are less likely to do so. So that's a reasonable option. And I can just build my two temples and save my power, maybe for a power action later in the round, or maybe for, like, if I'm lucky enough to land on temp ship, double dig next round or something, which would probably be the best case scenario. The final option is to take the priest myself. The reason for doing this is G3. Front and center, like simple. I can either send it to Earth, which would give me some power back and some coins, or I can, but more importantly, like prevents the witches from doing it. Zitcob, I'm coming back to that. That's the last tricky, interesting one. And it goes along with this priest. It goes along with the upgrade one particularly. Sorry, the priest. I could either send it to, or I could just advance my ship and be prepared to claim territory next round. So I'm going to admit that's how I'm leaning, but I'm not sure yet. I think in all of these scenarios, I'm trying to build at least 2 temples. And if I take a spade in some case, then it's 2 temples and a dwelling, which is also better. Like, that's one of the big arguments for single dig. It's just like 2 temples and a dwelling is a better opening. But I'm worried about C5. Okay, so Zitcob, you asked about double dig. So this is one of the reasons to not upgrade, is that if I give Barnacle another power, he has access to double dig. That double dig is going on D5 if he gets it and wants it. And the problem with that is it gives him access to this string of reds, which one puts C5 under pressure ultimately. Probably not this round, although honestly, like, would Giants open with 7 dwellings? Maybe. It's not a bad opening for him. And it does feel pretty risky. It does cut off the witches from the middle, which would be really nice, but I don't think I think I'd rather have the witches have that stretch than the Giants have that stretch. I should let him have it for the viewers. I mean, I think if I were Barnwell and I had the option, I would do D5, but I would do D5 and then build D6 and then build a temple. That's probably what I would do. And then the temple allows you to advance your ship next round or for round 3 and build more dwellings. So that's probably, but I think it would be awesome. And when I was initially bidding on Giants, I was thinking about it. I think now, though, I'm not sure I can give it to him. I mean, he might get it anyways. Like, even if I don't upgrade, if the witches just upgrade, that seems unlikely to me, but I guess it's possible. But here's the other weird thing about that is if the Giants take D5 and D6, now all of a sudden he wants G3 too. That becomes his connection hex. And so, like, I don't know. I kind of feel like I have to take the priest here because I think it's the option that avoids like the disaster outcomes. And especially given, like, I hate to play this way, but like given this is a league, like not finishing last is kind of important and nice. So it feels like bad, but I think it's the answer. Sadly. So having talked through it now, there's a lot of things to consider, and I feel like depending on how the game goes, I may come back to this and think, man, like, what's going on? But I'm trying to think about the ordering here for a second. So one thing that's interesting actually is if I take the priest, Barnawall probably just like upgrades because he doesn't have enough for double dig. It's ranged. It's too much value, man. Too much value. 40 points. I'm winning right now, remember? So I'm trying to let's think through this line one more time to make sure. So if I take the priest, Barnawall probably just upgrades because he can't really do much else. I mean, I guess he could like build a dwelling on I5, but most likely he probably just upgrades D4. Then I think Mellison, with the priest access and therefore his potential shipping line gone, probably single digs E6, which is nice. Cuts off the Giants town. And Dre's, you asked earlier, like, is the Giantstown that bad for me? And maybe it's not. Like, it's a really nice start for him. It will give me more leash with both those hexes getting built up. And by round 2, one of them's going to have to get upgraded too. But I also think that, like, that's E6 is not actually a great investment for the nomads. It forces a fight toward E4, which is like away from me and not bad. So I think long term, like, this is better than them just getting it. I don't know. And then Simon at that point, especially if Barnwell upgraded, Simon will have enough for double dig. So who's gonna act 6? No, because I think Simon would. I think Simon would get double dig. I mean, maybe Barnwell builds I5 to hold on, and he could do. Yeah, that's true. So I guess, like, here's the question: do I care more about C5 or G3? If I think they're both under threat. Um, well, this is what I'm doing right now. I'm calculating it out, right? Like, I feel like I'm playing the role accurately, EJ. But oh man, we've been on for 50 minutes now, and I haven't decided what the hell I want to do in this game. C5 does not get many new clusters. It's very true. But it also is a decent, like, town access spot, because then I can go up to, like, B5, A11. It's also bad for the witches if I can cut those off. I mean, unfortunately, neither D6 nor G3 by themselves connect me. So, like, maybe the connection doesn't matter so much. Like, so one thing to think about is, like, maybe losing G3 isn't actually the end of the world. Because I could connect through, like, I could put the landscape on H4 and bridge to I9. It's a little ugly, and I'd need, like, another neighbor for a town or more digs down in the southeast, but maybe that's not the end of the world. One thing to think about is that if I take C5 right now, it decreases Barnwell's incentive to go through. Now, maybe he does it anyways and goes, like, TP4 dwellings or something. But anyways, it's tough. It's all tough. I still think I'm leaning the priest. And if C5 gets taken because Barnwell's able to get Act 6 and cut through, then I probably just abandon that temple. Or maybe ultimately I end up on G4 or something and it connects, but, like, most likely I probably just abandon that temple and try to get some shipping quickly and get somewhere. Or another thing is, and the priest helps me with this too, because it gives both is cost less power than the other options. In a typical round 1, are you wondering this hard about how what you do affects other players? I would say it varies. This is feeling very TM Tory. Back then, I would. I also feel like there are few round 1s though where this many options are, like, realistic considerations. So I would say on average, no, but it's not. It doesn't never happen. It also obviously doesn't happen ever when I play live, which I think is one of the reasons that, like, I've had a hard time transitioning from Snellman to live play on BGA, because I like to do this type of thing. I find it interesting. and you can't do it in a live game. You don't have enough time to like really think through it. So um, yeah, but this is like why I like Terra Mystica, because there's so many options, so many lines. Try to consider all the different, like, if I do this, then he does that, and then that happens. Like, uh, I think everyone does it kind of in the auction. Not everyone, but a lot of people do it in the auction. You're trying to figure out kind of how round one is going to, who's going to double dig, like those types of things. Um, and I kind of had some thoughts about it, and then the G2 placement, like, and the G2 plus temp ship combination by Barnwell is what threw me into this like unknown. Um, so that's kind of where I'm at. One thing that's interesting is like, if I to go back to the priest, and I am gonna take the priest here, I'm pretty sure. Um, if Barnwell, first of all, it leaves Barnwell with the option of like TP 5 dwelling, semi dwelling rush, and you guys could have your fun with that. So I'll leave it slightly open as a line for him. But I also think G3 is important. And it also leaves off the line. There's a sneaky line here of, if I don't spend that much power and I get some leech back, there's a chance that if double dig falls to me in round 2, I could potentially double dig plus hard dig F3, which would be a huge, costly, like crazy, almost as engineers investment, but it might be worth it, especially if Barnwall like isn't on G1 or something. Um, I'd have to figure out the exact specifics of like what would bring it to pass, but I like kind of the idea of it being an option. So it's either going to Earth, or what's the priest doing? It's either going to Earth or advancing ship. Based on after a couple moves, I think I'll have a better idea of whether or not I have a chance of landing on temp ship or not. Um, and if witches have a chance of landing on temp ship or not. Because if neither of us land on temp ship, then it's okay going to Earth. Or if I'm going to land on temp ship, then it's going to Earth. But if witches are going to land on temp ship, then I might need to advance. So, or even if witches are going to pass before me. So, a lot of consideration. Another thing too here that I can do, I could do now, but I don't think it helps me that much and is really dangerous. But could do later in the round, once the power actions have gone a little more, is just build a bridge from F4 to G3, which isn't great because like I don't even know if I'm gonna have I don't even have a guaranteed town spot, but it would get me the hex, and then I'd be locked into trying to build a town there on like H4. It's probably a sanctuary town, unless I go H4 landscape and cut through, which could be a cool town. But anyways, so this is what I'm doing. I have decided, and if it comes back to bite me, so be it. This game's already kind of gone a little sideways, so here we go. But the fact that no one else has a priest is an important piece of it too. So, all right, it's done. We'll see what happens. I'm fascinated, by the way, at the end of the season. These guys have agreed that we're going to jump on and talk about the games. Yeah, that's Istari. That's one thing I'm thinking about. He could come back with like a 5 power priest or something, and like I'll just be sad. But at least it's forcing people into tough choices, I think, which is good. So, anyways, it'll be, these guys have agreed. As I said, these guys have agreed to come on at the end and talk about the game. So all the games, but I think this is going to be the one that generates the most conversation. It'll most likely be the last one to finish too, based on its current pace. So. This is the one game with factions that I'm in. It's on Fire and Ice map, and it has landscape. And I think last time it was like close to the end of the auction, and I was on Ice Maidens and saying that I hoped I would land on ice mittens, and I did. I'm on ice mittens, and I love ice mittens. So I paid a hefty price for it. The auction the auction was Ice Maiden 17, Riverwalkers 34, Darklings 27, and Halflings at 40. Halflings opened double temple. Riverwalkers opened temple and 2 dwellings, or just 1 new dwelling built. And I was able to open. I took Air 2 and had to be the temp ship tile, which I didn't actually need. But to guarantee myself double dig, I started on F3 and E4 as green was my starting color. I dug G3 and G4 and threw my landscape down. The landscape for the Ice Maidens means every time you build a priest, you get another spade. So then when I upgraded my temple on E4, I got another spade, which was able to build E5. This was the exact opening that I was envisioning when I was bidding the Ice Maidens down in the auction. So I'm really glad it all worked out. It was kind of unblockable, really. So, but it did work out. And then, is the Riverwalkers connection already dead? Yeah, they're gonna have to use. It's not dead, but they have to use their landscape. So the interaction between the Riverwalkers and the so a few things happened. One is Barnawall was in 3rd seat, and so he took the priest tile to deny it to the Riverwalkers. The Riverwalkers then took a power tile, so they were only 1 power in Bowl 2 away from being able to burn for the priest action. And then Barnawall took the priest action. So at one point, he was sitting in round 1 with 3 priests in hand, which is pretty rare and something really only the Darklings can do. But then Barnawall made the really interesting choice. So obviously Darklings only start with 4 workers. He upgraded to a TP, and then he was sitting there with TP dwelling and only 2 more workers. And so the question was like, what does he do, right? Does he try to carve out some space here, or does he try to, or does he go ahead and upgrade to a temple? So he dug and built on D6, which I think he's clearly was trying to carve out some space in the middle here. But also, interestingly, like that now threatens C4, and he actually had enough priests. He could have also dug and built C4 last round. What he chose to do instead was send the priest to water for it was dwellings water priest reward. So he basically just got his priest back, and then did a 3 power worker conversion. He had just enough to build his temple for what did he take? Earth 2, Fire 1, Earth 2. So the interesting thing was then the Riverwalkers had been forced to pass, and so they unlocked green and built C4 with their first action, which has allowed them to do this expansion in the north that you've seen. Barnawall landed on temp ship and turns right around and digs and builds G6. So now he has to bridge for that town, but it's actually kind of a nasty block on the Riverwalkers because the Riverwalkers now, one, can't get to G7 or anything else down there. Like, I think yellow is their natural next color to unlock, either yellow or gray. But if it's yellow, like yellow is now less interesting because he couldn't get down there. But also, the Riverwalkers, if they want to build a town in the middle, yeah, the green hexes are just getting destroyed. Luckily, beyond the 2 I started on, I don't care that much about the other ones in the middle. I only care about the ones on the outside. So none of this is particularly disruptive to me. But now Simon, if he wants to build a town in the center here, is going to have to use the landscape, which he's going to need to do anyways to connect, but he can put it on the 2 Darkling hexes. Between D5 and D6, and then build his stronghold on G5. So it'd actually be kind of a cool looking town, like stronghold, bridge, sanctuary, landscape. Or I guess if he ends up with Fire 2, he can not build this there. But now Simon's expansion is already kind of a bit limited. He's kind of got this north area, and I'd imagine he's going to try to get west. D4 is going to be crucial. And actually, interestingly, like every faction besides me really wants D4. So we'll see who ends up with it. But back to my game now. So things have been going pretty well. I had the option at the beginning of this round to take double dig, and it is a spade round. But I decided to go ahead and take the coins instead because without the coins, I wouldn't have been able. It would have been tougher to build a temple, or I would have like done double dig, but then not been able to build the dwellings right away. And I want another temple one is because it gives me a spade itself, so that's half the points that I get from double dig. Just by building the temple, but also like I need to score some points. I am a little bit, I'm starting from a point back position. And Barnawal, by choosing to do this route, he's the one person who doesn't have Earth 1. He now doesn't have enough to build a sanctuary or another temple this round, so I can take Earth 1, which, like, I'm going to build enough dwellings this game. I'm going to want 3 towns at least, so like I'm going to build enough dwellings that's going to be valuable. What I'm trying to plan ahead for right now and think about is getting the right spades at the right time to get the towns that I want and sort of everything else that I want, right? So like what I've trying to plan for is to get 1 town next round for the 2 key town, which 1 will bump my heir up enough to give me 2 spades. And also, obviously, it's the 2 key town. It's really good. And then build another town the next round with a stronghold to start passing for temple points. And I feel like if I can figure out how to do all of that, I will be in a really nice position. The problem is to do that, I either am going to have to like expensive TP on F3 or get to H6. Now, Barnawal, after he came to G6, I thought he was going to dig H6 and build on I5, but he instead decided to build on B3 and take advantage of temp ship while he has it, which I get. But the question is now I'm thinking, should I try to get down and snipe H6 this round? And I'm thinking that it might be worth it. The way to do it would be build a temple, use the spade from the temple on H5, and then use single spade on H6. No one else is going to take single spade this round because the halflings are going to take double spade. So, and then next round, I could just build another TP, maybe even another temple, honestly. And then if I can advance my ship, I'd actually have an extra spade at the end of next round to throw somewhere. Thinking a little further ahead, like I have kind of 2 options for my 3rd town. I can either do this kind of D9 and then west strat or circling around F6 or something like that. Or I can go on the southwestern island. The problem with the southwestern island is it is a triple ship unless I like go through H3, which I guess is an option instead of H6, except I can't get it this round. And I probably won't have any neighbors. I just trying to build out a late town next to the halflings is always a little risky. But I do have the advantage of being ice, so I can dig stuff and then prevent him from touching it. So I like my position a lot here. I think I have a decent line. I've gotten a little more cult competition early than I expected. But the 2 key town will mean I'll still score a good number of points there, and these air rewards coming up are going to be really sick. So, and before that, I'm going to be using the workers on like TPs and the big building and another temple. And then once we get to round 5, I'm going to advance my dig and use those digs to build out the 3rd town. I'll also probably try to build my 3rd temple that round. There was a line I was thinking of. It was like, could I build the 3rd temple next round? I don't think I'm going to have enough workers, or really, actually, I'll probably more importantly not have enough coins. But maybe there's a world where that comes into play. That would be so cool, man. If I could figure out a way to build a third temple next round, use the spade off of it, and then build the stronghold in round 4 and start passing from 9. Oh, that'd be sick. And also, that temple would obviously be water one. Like, ooh, that's juicy. That'll be the stretch line. But for now, I guess one thing is like, if I think I'm going to take single digit now, but extra priests, yeah, true. Yeah, I mean, ultimately by the end of the game, I am going to want to like send a bunch of priest cults and double advanced dig and triple advanced ship, because that's how I'm going to connect my 2 existing areas. So if I can do it, I'll do it. I'm at the beginning of next round. I'm probably going to have to calculate whether or not I have enough to do it all. The immediate question is a TP in the temple, or do I just single dig? I don't think, like, no one can or would take single dig. I guess if Rafa was feeling like really nasty, he could. I obviously want this temple TP and temple to be on G4. Stronghold's eventually going to end up on E5 because this is going to be a 4 hex town without another neighbor. That was the other downside of Barnawal's taking of G6 and preventing Simon from coming to G7. Is G7 was this beautiful neighboring hex that didn't in G8 because he can't cross the land. Like, that would have been really, really nice. Unfortunately, did not come to pass. So the one issue with this potential line is it does leave F5 open a little longer, especially if I this round, which, like, if the halflings were feeling nasty, they could try to block it or something. But he's not even getting to 2 ship this round because he decided to send a priest to a cult. So I think it's safe enough. So I'm going to go ahead and just upgrade, and we'll be pursuing this line. Cool. All right. Thanks everyone for jumping on. Hope you enjoyed. Apologies for the very long, in-depth analysis of the prior game. Like I said, I don't apologize for it because I like it, but if it was a little long for some of you, I apologize for that. But hope you enjoyed. Hope you're enjoying watching these games evolve. By the end of the month, I think we're probably going to be only talking about that one game because the other ones are going to be over. But again, as a reminder, the links are on the scheduling page that Super maintains, and he's also chatting about them on Tuesdays before he jumps into the European games. I think he gave some predictions on Tuesday of this week, so if you didn't see him, look back to that. And I'll try to jump on maybe Monday before Tuesday. See y'all, and everyone have a great weekend. Cheers.
Right, there we go. That is the first set of Matt streams. That Colour Sandwich one where he's playing engineers, right? That's a mad game. That one's worth coming back and catching up on, because yeah, that's just a crazy situation, and how he thinks through that first round and playing that game is really something. Right, Terra Mystica trivia. Okay, so what have we got? Oh, this is an interesting one. So have you ever wondered why the 3rd engineer dwelling doesn't produce a worker? So it turns out it's because lax labour legislation in the land of Terra Mystica means that engineer who lives in that dwelling was subject to an unfair dismissal by his engineering firm. So he can no longer work. So next time you get the coins action and you're fabulously wealthy, spare a thought for that poor engineer. Right, next video I'll be making, I'm going to try and do a YouTube thing, so maybe you can click on it if it's there or something. Maybe there's a thing appearing on screen. I've never done that before. Cheers. Thank you.